On today's show, going to be talking about the telling comments that Brook Lopez made about how he sees his role with this LA Clippers team. Going to be talking about that on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 20 years, been covering the team for 5 years on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video, and listen wherever you get your podcasts. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Brook Lopez's comments that he made in front of the media at Summer League. I was lucky enough to be in attendance, albeit a little bit late, which is just me being a bonehead. But those comments are on my Dime Dropper channel if you want to check those out. They're also on the LA Clippers YouTube channel if you want to check them out, but check mine out because it helps your boy out. But anyway, I'm going to be analyzing some of those comments, and I'm looking at what his comments told us. Now, of course, they're just words. You can't always take an NBA player's word to the bank, but there was an authenticity and a no reason to lie kind of thing with the answers that Brook Lopez gave. So we'll be talking about his mindset going into whatever role he's going to be playing, what he said about Ty Lue, and the potential lineups that he talked about, and then we can brainstorm about. So let's talk about what Brook Lopez said. And he said, the first thing he said in my video is, I love defending. I love being an anchor on defense. So let's just talk about that real quick. That blends right in to the culture of this LA Clipper team. With Jeff Van Gundy, with Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn, we were the third best defense in the league. And what was one of the biggest flaws of our defense? When Ivica Zubac went out of the game, we had no secondary rim protector. We had no reliable source at that backup center. For those that didn't watch the Clippers that much, it was Kai Jones, Mo Bamba, mainly Mo Bamba over Kai Jones. And then we tried Drew Eubanks for a couple of games until we realized, playing Ben Simmons at the small ball 5 is probably a better solution. And by the way, for those wondering what's going to happen to Ben Simmons with the Chris Paul edition, I just did an episode on that, and definitely are going to be doing more content talking about his fit and all the lineup possibilities and what that does for the team as the week progresses. But Ben Simmons is definitely out now. There's no question about that. But Brook Lopez, being able to be that secondary rim protector behind Ivica Zubac, where we have 2 drop coverage specialists who can protect the rim. Yes, they may not be the quickest on the perimeter, but 2 straight up NBA bigs. Because no offense to Drew Eubanks, he's been in the league for a while, but he's never played a relevant role on good teams. Brook Lopez was a starting center on a championship team 5 years ago. And yes, it's 5 years ago, but if you want to make it be more specific, he was the starting center on a on a number 1 seed 3 years ago. So now being a backup for the first time in his career, he said, bottom line, I just want to help the team win. Whatever they need me to do, whatever they see fit for my role, I'm going to be working as hard as possible to be great at that. So he says that, right? And that's important and amazing to hear. I just want to help the team win. And so it sounds like Brook Lopez is super bought in. He talked about how he grew up in NoHo, North Hollywood. He grew up in the Valley. His older brother, Alex, not Robin, Alex, went to school out here. So, he's a Cali kid. Yes, he moved to Fresno, went to high school there and whatnot, but he grew up in LA he was born in LA, spent some years here. He's home. He's not opposed in year 17 to take a role as a backup for the first time in his career. Behind Ivica Zubac, we definitely have one of the best. This is going to be year 18 for Brook. 18, was drafted in 2008, 10th overall pick by the New Jersey Nets. Of course, he is literally the all-time leading scorer in the history of the Brooklyn Nets, which is quite the accomplishment indeed. That Brook Lopez is an all-time leading scorer of a team. But anyway, that's the main thing I'm taking away is Brook Lopez seems super bought in. Super bought into what his role is going to be as a backup. I don't think you're going to be seeing him complain about his lack of minutes or his role. He just wants to help the team win. Whatever they need, he said, whatever they need me to do, whatever they see fit for my role, I'm going to be working as hard as possible to be great at that. Even if it's something that I haven't done yet or I may not be great at, I'm going to put my best foot forward, put the work in, and I'm going to be great at it and go and help the team. I mean, you can't ask for a better answer from Brook Lopez. You can't ask for someone who seems, you can't ask for someone that seems more bought in than that. That is what you want to hear as a fan. So I'm excited. I mean, of course, there's the, like, I loved Brook Lopez as a kid type of deal. And it was super funny. After the camera stopped, Brook Lopez is shaking everybody's hand. And I go, dude, I was your biggest fan in LA back in like 2013. When I was in high school, I used to always tell my friends you were the most underrated player in the league. And he was like, oh, thanks, man. And then he smacks me on the chest and he was like, still am. So that made me die. Like having that moment with Brook Lopez, he was a great guy, super funny. And I think he's going to just give some great quotes this season. I'm looking forward to having him on this team. And I think something that is so underrated that people aren't talking about enough is having that stretch big element. I'll talk about it more, what kind of lineups we could use him in, but just the simple fact that we have Brook Lopez, who last year, for example, averaged 32 minutes a game and shot 51, 37, 83 splits from the field is insane. Like the fact that we have a 37% three-point shooter coming off the bench, think of what that does in the pick and pop game. We don't have a pick and pop game. We only had pick and rollers. Now James Harden, when teams are guarding that high pick and roll or that high pick and pop with he and Brook Lopez, the center that steps up and plays drop coverage against Harden, you're leaving Brook Lopez wide open for three. And the averages say he's 37%. Of course, that's not accounting for which ones are open, which ones are contested. But I guarantee you, open, he shoots better. You're going to have to really throw two on a James Harden. Now, the counter is going to be if teams switch. That's where Brook Lopez needs to dip into his Brooklyn bag and go post up. But how many centers can even switch on a James Harden? That's most likely going to be the matchup we want to exploit is Harden being guarded by a big as opposed to Lopez being guarded by a small. If it was 10 years ago, that would be the case, that coaches would want it to be fed to the big. But regardless, you're causing a mismatch if you switch that action. Then Brook Lopez in the short roll, he can always make solid decisions, has that push shot. So it's going to be brutal for teams guarding James Harden in that pick and pop. And then with Kawhi Leonard, I mean, it's going to make him look like a better playmaker because he's not the best at finding the roller or making a read going downhill in that pick and roll. But now, if you're playing drop coverage, he has a much easier read. He can just throw it right back to Brook Lopez. And now he's getting free assists. And if you switch that, honestly, teams are going to try to switch that action because they don't think that Kawhi can blow by guys as much anymore, which they're right about. So they're going to switch a bigger guy on him that he can't bully. And that's where we got to feed Brook Lopez. So I think Brook Lopez needs to be aggressive in the post as well, trying to get the ball back to basket against smaller guys. But I'm hoping that it can make Kawhi Leonard have some easier, assist opportunities in that pick and pop game. Because if teams are in drop coverage, I would switch that action. But if teams are in drop coverage, it's going to be food. And then Beal and Lopez, and CP3 and Lopez, it's going to open up the offense for us in ways that we haven't seen in a while. We didn't have that with Tice, with Plumlee, even with Isaiah in 2022. We didn't have that. We tried with Ibaka. He got injured. His back was hurting. This is a new element we haven't had. So I'm very excited about what that can do to our offense and it giving Zoo some insurance. And if Zoo ever misses a couple of games, hell, Brook Lopez has always been a starter. So it's great. But coming up, going to be talking about what Brook Lopez said about Ty Lue and further examining what Ty Lue has done to players in that veteran role. I got to tell you a little something about Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? I don't even remember all the things that I'm paying for. So Monarch Money has made things a lot easier to navigate. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. Driver's seat? It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. For me, it reminded me that I was signed up to the YMCA because during the fires, I tried to get my kids a place to practice before we reopened school, and I didn't cancel my membership, so I was just getting charged this whole time. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, big Brook Lopez coming off a season where he averaged 13 points a game, which was actually more than he averaged in 2023-24. Played 80 games. 80 games. And averaged 32 minutes a game and shot 51% from the field, 37% from three, and 83% from the line. The rebounding has always been one of the big concerns with Brook. He only averaged 5 rebounds last year as a starting center at 7'1", and he's never averaged even 9 rebounds a game unless you round up the 2010 season. So he's never been the best rebounder, which for me is one of the reasons why he's not, as good all time as he maybe could have been. But offensively, the guy was a beast. He averaged 20 plus points a game on 4 separate occasions with the Nets. And he found great success by expanding his range. He was a great 18-foot, 15-foot mid-range kind of shooter. And then he expanded it, not just the three-point range, but like deep three-point range. And no game comes to mind more so than that 2019 game, one of the Eastern Conference Finals against Kawhi and the Raptors, where he just was going absolutely berserk from downtown. So it's going to be great to have Brook Lopez on this basketball team. Again, I have a little bit of bias because he was one of my favorite players, but everything about the way he spoke in that, I don't want to call it it's not a press conference, but the media availability was very encouraging. And so when someone asked him about Ty Lue, he said he's a player's coach and basically knows what it takes to win. He's been through the grind from a player's perspective, won a championship. So let's talk about that line that he used. Ty Lue is a player's coach. Let's just take a look at his resume and what people have said about him. So LeBron James said that Ty Lue is one of those guys that holds players accountable. So when we got Ty Lue, or I shouldn't say got him because he was on our bench, as Glenn Rivers famously said, Ty was sitting right next to me. But when he was promoted, I was like, man, is he going to be kind of a yes man? But he showed that he definitely could get the respect of the players, but LeBron James basically advocated for him. In 2016, an article came out that Ty Lue said it's been good so far on holding LeBron James accountable. He said he understands what we've got to do to get to the point we want to get to. It's not personal. It's just teaching and correcting. If I can teach and correct him, like I said, other guys will follow in line. We can't be afraid to do that and hold him accountable. Of course, he has the best basketball IQ of the guys I've been around, so he knows a lot. I'm not taking anything away from him. Just getting back on defense, attacking more, being more aggressive, taking shots when he's open, things like that. It's stuff that he knows. And that's the thing, right? An NBA player, or even, like, for example, the kids that I coach, if they watch their tape, they'll see exactly what I'm telling them. But you're playing a basketball game, you don't always have the perspective of seeing the whole floor and being, clear-minded. You're in the thick of it. You're in the line of fire. You're low dribbling. You're seeing defenders. You're having a different angle than someone that's sitting on the sideline or watching it on TV. So sometimes a coach will tell you stuff you already know. You just got to hear it from someone. So that was an article in 2016. But, we didn't hear. Oh, this was another article that came out that made us think that Ty Lue does hold players accountable. Tyronn Lue called out LeBron James during halftime of Game 7 of the NBA Finals. This came out in a Sports Illustrated article December 1st, 2016. And during Game 7, it said Cavaliers coach Tyronn Lue called out LeBron James. It may have been the spark the Cavs needed to win their title. Stop being so passive. Stop turning the ball over and guard Draymond. And he said Bron was mad, pissed off at me. And then we went into the locker room at halftime, and I told him the same thing in front of all the guys. He was mad again, pissed off again. But the Cavs were down by 7 in that game, and of course, the rest is history. So it was, a moment where you could see Ty Lue held him accountable. So when he got to the Clippers, we were hoping that he could do that to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who that first year, their own teammates called him out for coming off like they owned the joint, essentially, at that Montrezl Harrell interview. And I think Montrezl had some validity to that. Especially in the case of Paul George, he hadn't won a championship coming in like he owned the joint. But I think both of them did. They were put on this pedestal. We got him. It was the whole, story of the offseason, this heist that we got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. But it was guys like Montrezl, guys like Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley that built that culture, that 2019 season. And they didn't want guys to just come in and act like they own the joint, especially with Kawhi load managing, for example, and then Paul George being injured and then coming in thinking he's the guy because he had just finished third in MVP voting. Like Montrezl and Lou and them didn't really care about that. But anyway, talking about Ty Lue, right? His first season as a coach was 2020, 2021. I think we got more out of Kawhi. He wasn't load managing to start the year. He was more accountable. He was playing harder defense, I thought, that season. Even though I thought he was good defensively in 2020, I thought he was playing even harder defense in 2021. I think Ty Lue kept saying, I'm getting on Kawhi to be more of a leader. And he revived Nicholas Batum. He revived Reggie Jackson. He found a role for guys who were considered washed, who were considered at the end of the rope. And he found a role for them. He was able to play a young player in a big moment in Terrence Mann. He made adjustments that won us playoff series, albeit a little bit late with the Dallas stuff. Not taking Kawhi Leonard off Luka. Finally not switching Ivica Zubac onto Luka. Playing the right guys. Get more Terrence Mann minutes. More Rondo minutes in games 3 and 4. There were going small. These things ended up winning us 2 series. And Ty Lue played a big part in that. Pulled Rondo at the right time. He did a great job in that first year. There's no denying it. And then you go to the second year. He gets the most out of Reggie again. He gets the most out of Marcus Morris. Gets the most out of Amir Coffey. Gives Terrence Mann a bigger role. Gives Isaiah Hartenstein the best season of his career in that role. And we win 42 games with that team. I mean, those first 2 years, you cannot say that Ty Lue wasn't stellar. And then there was that third year, right? And by the way, we got Paul George Paul George re-signed before he even got coached by Ty Lue for a game. But Kawhi Leonard re-signed after the injury, so you could see that he had the trust of the organization and Ty Lue. So, because if he didn't like Ty Lue, he would either get him fired or he would leave. So Ty Lue stayed. That means that Kawhi Leonard likes him. And 2023, though, was the year where I was like, wow, like what is going on with Ty? And that's when the players coach thing felt like he was kind of getting run over by the players because he didn't make an adjustment fast enough when it came to Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris. Robert Covington was catching DNPs. You had Terrence Mann not playing enough, and clearly he was frustrated with his role. So he pissed some players off that season, from what I heard and what was confirmed by a lot of people. And I think you could see it in the way we played that season, in the way the body language was, in the way that Reggie Jackson immediately was traded after he got benched and changed his whole demeanor, in the way that Marcus Morris was disappeared after he was benched. Those two guys, Ty Lue was clearly afraid to bench him because he knew their personality. He knew that they wouldn't be able to contribute after that. They would get too hurt. So, yes, maybe he was a player's coach, but it didn't work out for him that season because he benched those guys. They still were pissed off. I don't know what his relationship with those guys are now. They should be grateful for him because he helped them out in times. Well, Marcus Morris, when we got him, his stock was the highest it's ever been. But you can't say that Ty Lue did not trust Marcus Morris, that he took so much heat, Marcus Morris, because Ty Lue left him in longer, left him in the starting lineup longer than he should have been. But yeah, Ty Lue, from what I've seen with the Clippers, he sure is a player's coach. But man, I don't know if that's always the best thing. I think sometimes he can be a little... See, but I'm not in the locker room, so I don't like saying things like that. But he definitely seems like more of a player coach than a disciplinarian. Let's put it that way. But people want to be here. Nico Batum came back. James Harden seems to love Ty Lue. Paul George seems to have no beef with Ty Lue. I saw them say hi in Summer League. Kawhi Leonard likes Ty Lue. He re-signed again. Norman Powell really liked playing for this team. You could tell with his with his exit. Terrence Mann, I don't know. I wonder what his opinion of Ty Lue is. But he wasn't sitting too far from our coaching staff in Vegas. So Brook Lopez calls Ty Lue a player's coach. I think he is that. And I still love Ty. Do I think he's the right man to take us forward? I don't know how many better options there are on the open market, but he's got to be better. I mean, he was great last season, but I think the playoffs he could have been better. But it's a huge season for him to manage all these guys. And coming up, I'm going to speak a little bit more about the lineup possibilities with Brook Lopez and what he said about potential lineups involving him and Ivica Zubac. All right, so Brook Lopez is a member of your LA Clippers, and he will be backing up Ivica Zubac. He knows he's backing up Ivica Zubac, so that's great. He seems really bought into his role. When you look at the Clippers' payroll, there are very few guys actually on it anymore. It's Kawhi Leonard making $50 million. They haven't updated. Oh, it's because they haven't updated James Harden on Basketball Reference. Let me see if I can find a better one. Okay. Kawhi Leonard, $50 million. James Harden, $39 million. John Collins, $26 million. Ivica Zubac, $18 million. Bogey, $16 million. Derek Jones Jr., $10 million. Brook Lopez, $8,750,000. Nicholas Batum, $5 million, basically $5.5 million. Chris Dunn, about $5.5 million. Bradley Beal, $5.5 million. That's insane. Yannick, $2 million. Closer to $3 million. Kobe Brown, about $2.5 million. Cam Christie, about $2 million. And then 3 two-way contracts right now. Kobe Sanders, Trenton Flowers, and Patrick Baldwin Jr. Praying for, no, not praying, I don't want to sound like it's something terrible, but I hope Jordan Miller finds his way onto an NBA team somehow. Doesn't seem like that'll be with us, with those 3 guys being Trenton, Kobe, and Pat Baldwin. But anyway, so then you have to add Chris Paul to that. $3 million. So 1 open roster spot. Do we need 15 players? I don't know. But anyway, so Brook Lopez, he was asked by Law about what do you think about potentially playing alongside Zubac in lineups. And he said, yeah, we complement each other extremely well. Great defensively, dominating the paint, sealing the paint off. And he talked about stretching the floor for him. So here's what I'll say about this. I don't know about playing Zoo and Lopez together because when you look at double big lineups across the NBA, they usually have a little bit more of a mobile big than that. It's 2 guys that are really heavy drop coverage dudes. And I think that against smaller teams, they might just be making us move a little too much in the half court. I think offensively it can work because you have an extra element of offensive rebounding with that size. You have a genuine mismatch more often than not with whoever the second tallest guy on the opposing team is. They probably won't be tall enough, strong enough, big enough to guard Lopez or Zoo. And Lopez can stretch the floor. He mentioned that, giving him all the space to work with in the paint, Zoo. So I think it'll be interesting to see if we use it. I just don't see Ty Lue as a guy that would go with that. He may experiment because tinkering Ty, that's what he does. But I don't think that it's something that he wants to do with the spacing, with the shooting that we have. It's just, I don't know. We'll see if Ty wants to do that. But that's something that he talked about. And then he was asked about John Collins. And he said that it just gives us more versatility in the front court. We have more options. And it's true. I mean, Collins next to Zoo and Lopez is going to be awesome because he's like a secondary, I don't want to say rim protector, but like secondary help defender, like a good low man that can get some blocks behind them. When a lob gets thrown behind Lopez in drop coverage, Collins can come from the weak side and bat it away, something like that. So that's going to be great to have that extra level of athleticism next to an older guy like Lopez, or in Zoo's case, not the most springy big man. So John Collins next to Zoo or Lopez is going to be awesome. I think Lopez next to Chris Paul is going to be great. I would not want Chris Paul and James Harden playing together much, but that's for another day. That's a topic for another day, another episode. But I see Brook Lopez's role playing off the bench with Chris Paul a lot or Brad Beal a lot. I'm just so curious. Are we going to stagger Kawhi and Harden? Or are we going to just take them out together? Because we have so much depth now. It's going to be crazy. Ty Lue's and the coaching staff, they have a tough job to manage all these guys because it's not even just the egos. It's more that all of them are good. So it's hard to balance what you want. But I see Brook Lopez playing a lot with Bogey and playing a lot with Chris Paul and Nico because I think those are the guys that are for sure going to come off the bench. Everybody else I don't quite know. But I'm super hyped on Brook Lopez. I think his answers were great. Hilarious interaction I had with him. He's going to be able to give us that pick and pop element. Seems super bought in. Going to give us some gold quotes. Should I get a Brook Lopez jersey? I don't know. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. Did a raw reaction to CP3 coming home. And Locked On Clippers, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I see the subscribe number, like the subscriber count going up. I see the views have been great. Thank you so much, Clipper Nation. Now we have Chris Paul back. It's going to be so sick. I get to live my dream of covering one of Chris Paul or Blake Griffin. So that's so cool as a Clipper too. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the end of our summer league experience in the next episode. And then we're going to be talking about CP3, Bradley Beal, lineups, depth, all the stuff. We got so much to talk about, So it's a pretty good time to be a Clipper fan. Can't lie. We had a really good offseason. We've really had a great offseason. We're old, yes, but hey, man, we're better. And that's what matters. So the age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.